So so it was your dad, your in-laws, and how many kids do you have?
Two. I have two
kids.
daughters.
How old are they?
12 and 10.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
I know.
Right now is the perfect time.
I hardly look old enough, I'm sure.
You don't. Anyways, this is a good segue. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Avocado Toast. This one I'm really, really excited because we're having a conversation with somebody that I've been looking forward to meeting for a long, long time, that we've worked against each other, and now we're working with each other in multiple dimensions. Mr. Michael Cardoza from Cardoza Law Corp, one of the OGs in the consumer protection attorney legal game, and very nice to have you, Mike.
Thank you much, Peng.
Yeah.
Just because I'm old doesn't make me an OG, by the way. Okay, I just want to be clear on that.
No, I don't mean it in the age type of sense. I just mean the sheer amount of clients you've helped and the level of experience you have in this whole thing. You know, like I said, I used to work in defense, right? And
wait a minute, I'm out of here.
All right, bye, sayonara. I had cases against you, and then when I finally joined the plaintiff side, we had some mutual friends, and I was like, please, we got to get in contact. And we've become friends ever since.
You're going to talk about that today. You're going to talk about your conversion. You're going to talk about your burning bush. And if we get around to it, although there might not be enough time, I'll tell you how I used to be a debt collector.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to hear all about it. And not just that, you were also a Marine Corps JAG trial lawyer, right?
That's true.
Yeah. So, all right, run us through this. How did Mike Cardoza get here?
Okay, first of all, the thing everybody needs to know, especially you, is that I was Kevin Bacon, not Tom Cruise. Okay, so we're talking about A Few Good Men, and people always say, oh, you were Tom Cruise. Actually, I was Kevin Bacon, but I also was Tom Cruise because I not only did criminal defense, I did criminal prosecution.
Okay.
And the amazing thing about that movie, A Few Good Men, if you haven't seen it, is that it is like almost entirely, totally accurate. It's a bunch of young men and women with all kinds of vim and vigor right out of law school and going at each other like every case is, absolutely the end of the world. And you're going to love this. There's no motions practice at all. Yeah, you're not writing briefs and, exchanging snotty emails. Like, you're literally just going into court every single day and trying cases. Whatever happens, happens. And so what I find interesting in this, like, civil litigation where, we're suing somebody for doing something wrong and you ran over my cat and that cost every amount of money, you know what I mean? Like civil litigation as opposed to criminal where, you're charged with running after your neighbor's wife with an axe and you're going to go to jail for some period of time. In the civil litigation thing that we do, there's a lot of bullshitty stuff that goes on where everyone tries to hide the evidence and get ready for trial. And I asked a defense attorney once in our current business, and I don't mean to jump back and forth, but I asked a defense attorney once in our current business, what's the thing you least like to do? And they admitted to me, honestly, go to trial. Our clients don't ever want to go to trial. That's like the worst case scenario ever. And in the criminal world, especially in the military, you got guys with nothing to lose. They're like, nah, sir, I'm not guilty. Let's go to trial. So we're going to go to trial. We're going to see if you were the guy with the axe running around in the middle of the night. Anyway, I say all that to say is that it was a fantastic experience in like relating to human beings, just using real words to talk about like real stuff and doing trials over and over and over again without getting all up in your head about it. And what I notice in the civil litigation side is that the attorneys are really good at making a whole lot of paper and they're really good at sending a whole lot of emails. But when it comes to like telling people the real deal about what happened and why it's important, they're just, it's legal gobbledygook.
Yeah, I agree with you. And as somebody that's been in civil litigation my entire career, I agree 100%, and I'm envious. Like, I wish I'm going to be honest. I've not been to trial since I worked at the court, since I've clerked. I have now lived and worked about 900 feet from the Los Angeles Superior Courthouse and about 3 blocks away from the federal courthouse for the last over 2 years. Want to take a guess how many times I've been inside?
In 2 years in a civil litigation practice, using my own data as a reference point, I would say no more than 5 times.
I've been once.
Look, tell us how you got here.
Okay. All right. Well, we got to jump back. We got to come back to how you got here again. But
okay.
So I'll tell my story.
I know my story already. I want to hear your story. Right. But okay.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. So my story. It all started in 1987. We're going all the way back. I was born and raised in China, and moved to America in '98. And I think like you watched a lot of these movies when I was growing up, and like Few Good Men, You Can't Handle the Truth. I remember watching with my dad on TNT, on the Saturday night movies, with the commercial breaks. I was introduced to not just a new country, a new people, a new culture, but a completely new system too, right? Because in China, where I'm from, there's really no such thing as a legal system. Like, that's one of the reasons I love being a lawyer in America, because this is one of the only places where real people, like everyday normal people, can actually have a forum to bring their disputes. And as imperfect as it is, you can at least be heard, right? Like in China or, Russia, or in almost anywhere that's outside of the civilized, common law world, you either know somebody, you pay somebody off, or, tough luck, right? And I was introduced to this world, and I just became really, really fascinated. And in my gut, I knew that's what I wanted to do. But unfortunately, I come from 4 generations of doctors. And my parents, they had the brilliance of moving me to Kentucky my senior year of high school. And I went through a little bit of a rough patch. And as kids do, you can lose focus. And I was just like, whatever, I'll just do whatever, right? And I studied. Eventually, I started pre-law, but then I switched over and studied bioengineering, and then ended up pursuing medicine. And that's how I moved to California originally, was for medical school. But I just knew it wasn't the path for me. And mostly because I think I look better in the suit than I look in scrubs. And then took some time off, met some lawyers, actually got to learn what a lawyer does. And in 2014, I started law school. And I haven't looked back since. And then graduated law school in 2017. And like I said, mentioned, I worked at the court. I clerked for a year for a federal judge. And, even before that, during law school, I actually worked for half a year for another federal judge in the Eastern District of California. And, just fell in love with it more and more. And one thing that this period really brought me was some focus. Because, when you start law school, I don't come from any doctor or any lawyers in my family. I don't really know what is what. Like again, I think a lot of lawyers don't like to admit this because I think it doesn't make me look good. But my only exposure to this world was Denny Crane and Alan Shore on Boston Legal, right? It was Tom Cruise and Kevin Bacon on A Few Good Men. I never watched my cousin Vinny. I still haven't watched it. But, yeah, I know. And I know this sounds really bad and really millennial of me, but Harvey Specter from Suits, right? Like, it's these are my exposure to this stuff, and I know it's not real, but I didn't have any focus. And in law school, I didn't know if I wanted to do defense, if I wanted to do, this type of practice, employment, whatever, right? I didn't know. So working the court, bring it back, like I said, it gave me focus. And around this point, I realized I wanted to help people, right? I want to help everyday people, and I wanted to be on the plaintiff side. Because like you said, I work in there, I saw how the defense they hated going to trial, And it really just seemed like pencil pushing, right? I'm good at seeing through the fog a little bit and seeing what the real modus operandi for people are. And you can see the defense lawyers, they're there to do a job. They're there to enhance their billings. They're there to make their partners happy. They're there to make the client who is an employee of the corporation, right? The person they're trying to make happy is not even the person they're ultimately serving. The person they're trying to make happy is the associate general counsel who is trying to make their general counsel happy, who is trying to appease the C-suite, who's then trying to appease the board of directors, who is then trying to appease the stockholders, right?
And let me guess, making those people happy means not screwing up or taking any risk.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Means not fucking up. Means not fucking up.
Use that word, yeah.
Yeah. It's not about doing the right thing. It's not about getting the good result. It's about not fucking up. Yeah, you can't get blamed. At the end of the day, you can't get blamed, right? Okay. And the focus that this brought me was, I knew that this ain't for me. I'm just not that guy, because the only person I really give a shit about making happy is myself, right? And now also I want to do justice, and making myself happy. A very important way to do that is to help people, right? Because I learned also around the same time that the only way to really have happiness and fulfillment in life is to do good, is to do the right things in life.
Serve others.
Serve others, yeah. Right? You receive more joy by giving more joy.
You do.
Yeah. And you know, appeasing billing auditors is not going to give me that, right? And well, I knew where I wanted to end up, so I need to figure out how to do it. So then, after I clerked, I worked in plaintiff's class action. I really wanted to do that. I got to work on some really, really great cases, part of some really, really great teams, got some really great results. I don't know if you heard the recent Jewel settlement. Yeah, that was really, really big. It was
a little electric smoky thing?
Yeah, yeah. So I was actually, I drafted that, the first draft of that complaint. And it's been all over the news because I think the class size wasn't as big. So the individual settlement claims were like, people were getting like $3,000 checks, which is very rare in class actions.
Very. Usually you would get a coupon to buy more jewels.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know if they sell jewels anymore. But yeah, anyway, so I worked in class actions for a while. Then I worked in securities fraud class actions, worked on some really, really major cases. And again, seeing through the fog, and I realized that it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of the same thing, but on the other side, right?
Class action work?
Well, class action work, I still love class action work. I love multi-plaintiff work, right? But when you're in a really structured, large environment of a major firm, you're still, at the end of the day, you're appeasing entities, yeah. Right? So I wanted to work more with everyday people. And then I got the opportunity to join Defense Big Law for a little bit, and I knew. So the phrasing I actually came up with it recently is I would like to consider espionage, right? Because on the plaintiff side, I've heard about, you know, oh, we got this settlement today. Oh, we this case resolved this. Oh, we won the mediation and this happened, right? And I always wonder, I'm like, how does it get decided? What happens on the others in mediation? What happens in that other room, right? Like, how do you go from this figure to this figure? How do you go from them not talking to you and then all of a sudden to resolving it? And then if the whole thing blows up, what happens? How does it blow up? So I needed to figure that out. And I got the chance to work in defense to gain the perspective, right? And so I was like, okay, I got to do it. So then for a few years, I did that. And I'm very proud to say I was able to leave earlier this year. I knew this year was my year. 2024 is my year. It's a leap year. I felt God gave me an extra day this year to do it. So it's the year to do it. And, you know, and I left April 15th, and the firm has been growing steadily. Just this morning, I assigned the credentials for our fourth attorney. So you know, everything is going really, really well. And the best part is just, you know, I keep bringing this up, like helping people, right? Like, 'cause a lot of these people, they don't even know we exist. Our practice is so niche and the power imbalance is so significant, they don't even know we exist. And they're so happy to meet us. And they think that they're so shit out of luck I have clients who have declared bankruptcy for the stuff that happened to them. You know, I have clients that are just, you know, contemplating suicide because these are large institutions going against individuals. I mean, this is David and Goliath in the ultimate sense.
A part of the problem is that these defendants, the banks and the credit bureaus that we find ourselves up against, have mobbed the internet. You know, they've used search engine optimization or SEO to take up the first 10 pages of Google when you Google, how do I fix my credit report when I'm a victim of identity theft? You know, and of course, you know, Experian wants to be right there for you to say, oh, come to our website.
Yeah, sign this arbitration clause.
Which means, you know, we don't have to do anything and you can never sue us.
Exactly, yeah.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt, but that's part of the problem. You know what? I also want to make another point. Something that I've heard in your story, which is remarkable, is this continuing thread of having seen behind the curtain. And I'm kind of hoping that maybe that's sort of a theme for what we're talking about today, is what's behind the curtain. You have perspective that I don't have, that hardly anybody has. You came to America as an 11-year-old Chinese boy. That's old enough to know like how the world works in China. And now you're dropped into the middle of America. So you've seen behind the American curtain because you've looked at it with foreign eyes. Then you went to Kentucky. Well, that's a little bit different than California. And then you clerked in the federal court. So you've seen how all the litigation plays out from behind the bench, from the judge's perspective, writing judicial orders, writing draft opinions for the judge, listening to the judge talk to you and other clerks in the chambers about how things get decided. Like, you've seen behind the curtain. And then now you're talking about having been a defense attorney for these corporations that you and I both sue on behalf of consumers who are ID theft victims, and you've seen how they defend these cases. So, like, you know, you're the ultimate insider, now turning all of your perspective and knowledge about all the secrets, like, for the benefit of your current clients.
Thank you. That's very kind for you to say.
It's remarkable.
I wouldn't phrase it as the ultimate insider, but I've actually never thought of it that way.
No, think about it, dude. Like, how many people have those things? Maybe people have, oh, you clerked for a whatever, or, you know, I used to be a debt collector and own a, you know, collection agency. Okay, that's one piece of it. But you've got like the whole social cultural piece of it too. So the general and the specific. And when, you know, when you add three things up like that, it's not just, you know, 1 times 3 is 3. These are synergistic. You know, it's like
compounds.
It's like 9 or 27.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
it's huge.
Yeah, that perspective is, I never really thought about it that way.
It's huge.
It's true.
You know what's going to happen before it happens. And that's, you know, there's this thing that, you know, and I spent a lot of years in the Marine Corps doing other stuff like military planning and whatnot. And so, you know, the idea is that we disrupt the enemy's ability to communicate, to respond, to even figure out what's going on. And so you already know all the buttons to push on everybody that's going to turn them into a swirling, chaotic mess so that you can take advantage of them and dominate.
Exactly. Interrupt their logistics.
The OODA loop, if you want to get geeky about it. But you know, all of a sudden, when you have that power, it's kind of like, you know, when you have kids, like they know exactly how to push your button. And you find yourself reacting before you take that moment to pause and respond. And you realize, God, they know me so well because we've lived together for 10 or 12 years, you know, depending on which daughter you're talking about. You know, and we now know like every button, me because I've been doing it for over a decade, you because you've been doing it for a long time and you've been on the other side. We know exactly now which buttons to push. And I suppose I'm not giving anything away to you guys who we talk to every day because you know that we know because we're doing it to you every day. But we know like which buttons to push to get things to happen. It's not like, you know, we're my cousin Vinny where we're just taking anything that walks in the door and trying to figure it out as we go. You know, I think you made this comment in a podcast earlier that when you niche down your practice to like the absolute most, you know, discrete thing possible, you become so powerful in that practice area because you know everything about it and you almost can see the future and make it happen before anyone even knows what's going on. Sorry, that was a long ramble, but I just wanted to reflect on like your ability to, you're kind of like omniscience in this field.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, that's a really good summation, and and that perspective. I really, I need to meditate on it more. But I wouldn't say I'm the ultimate insider. I would say I'm more like the guy that always wanted to go to the party but wasn't invited. So I figure out a way how to sneak in, right? And then once I snuck into the party, I ate a whole bunch of chips and chugged a whole bunch of beer before I got kicked out. I would say that's more what I'm like. But I do know what the inside of the party looks like. And I agree with you 100%. We both know how to push our buttons. But I think our diverse experience perspective gives us something just as special, which not only makes us possibly good lawyers, but also good business people as well, which is comprehension of consequence. All right. I'm just now entering into a stage of my legal career where I feel more comfortable, handling everything, right? And I reflect back, and I'm also looking at some younger attorneys and some less experienced attorneys, and I'm trying to see what the difference is. And one thing I notice is the unfamiliarity with consequences, right?
Tell me more. Like, give me an example.
Well, it's just when something is serious and when something needs to be taken care of versus when something's not, right? Like an ex parte motion. You wake up in the morning, you check your email, and you see an ex parte motion, or you see ex parte on your phone, with a judge, and you just have no idea what it's about. That's something you need to worry about, right? You see an email when you wake up in the morning. You see an alert that there's an MSJ due in a week, and you totally didn't even know about this because your staff didn't tell you, or you just somehow felt that's an emergency to worry about, right? The font being a size 12 in the central district instead of a 14. That's probably not as big of a thing to worry about, right?
Is that a thing? I think I've been screwing that up for 10 years.
Yeah, it's just there's certain things, right? Or like a filing that was categorized wrong. The court said, like for instance, I got a ping yesterday saying that it wasn't me, but it was one of the opposing counsels. They filed it was a notice of filing deficiency for some obscure local rule that didn't stick to, right? And I think a more junior attorney would be like, oh my god, no, this is horrible. Like I'm going to get fired. It brings so much stress. And I think our diverse experience, again, this is just an example, gives us more perspective and understanding of the consequences. And we know this isn't something too stressful to worry about. And it allows us to triage our energy and our bandwidth to more productive things, right? And pardon me for rambling. We always do this when we talk because I think we both have so many thoughts in our head. We're trying to get it out.
I know I do.
Yeah. And, we only have so much, we have 100% of ourselves to give, right? No matter who you are, it doesn't matter if you're a homeless guy on Skid Row or you're Tom Brady or, whoever, right? You have 100% of yourself to give. Some people give 95%, some people give 15%, but nobody has more than 100%. Right. And the key to life, the key to business is not about trying to push past the 100% because that's impossible. It's not really about getting to 100% all the time because then you wear yourself out. It's about where to dedicate that 100%. Right. You dedicate 75% of your bandwidth to bullshit, you're going to accomplish bullshit.
Or how to multiply your 100% through your staff, through systems, through processes, and through focus.
Exactly. Right. Okay. So that's the point I was trying to make. Even though it is a Tuesday morning at post Thanksgiving at 10:45 a.m. I mean, this is prime business hours, right? But we're both here having a conversation with our listeners, with our viewers, with each other, because I think we both know, even if there's no camera here, a conversation between us face to face, this is productive. Like every time I talk to you. Like my dad always says, I look like Julia Roberts. Smile ear to ear. right? Because I feel like I've learned so much every time I've talked to you. And
your dad likes Julia Roberts. That's your dad's issue. You do not look at all like Julia Roberts, but I know someone who's in love with your Julia Roberts, and it's your dad.
Yeah. Well, he likes movies. I found out the other day my dad wanted to be an actor growing up, which just completely blew my mind.
Oh my.
Yeah.
It's wonderful the things that people reveal as they get older. And anyway, that's another topic.
Okay. All right. I told my story. Please. So you were in.
I thought I did tell my story.
Oh, you touched on it. So you started out in the Marine Corps. You were in JAG.
I'm gonna go back further than that.
Please.
Because it's kind of like your dad, right? He recently admitted to you that he wanted to be an actor. We both figured out that he's obsessed with Julia Roberts. Mm-hmm. But immigrating from China with at least one 11-year-old boy is frankly a full-time job, and he didn't have that opportunity. And then we talked about how when people get older, it's interesting how much more they reveal about their inner lives and how much more perspective they have on what makes them who they are. Mm-hmm. And as I've gotten older, I've kind of had some of the same urges, I guess. Mm-hmm. And, whereas maybe 15 or 20 years ago, I would try to prepackage what I was going to say or present myself in a particular way. You know how you would do on a resume? Mm-hmm. You're like, well, I'm fucking leaving the chicken shack out because, that's not important. What it is. I mean, every resume I've ever seen, if anyone's ever worked at McDonald's, that's an instant interview because I know they know process. I know they know procedures, customer service, and how it all makes money. So, don't anybody leave McDonald's off your resume because it's gold.
This conversation is happening post-election, by the way. So this mic is just actually
without all that. Yeah, this is a drama-free zone.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go way back, and it was a story that I told my wife spontaneously a few days ago, and she was sort of shocked, but not really. We were talking about my daughter, who I hope probably won't watch this because, she's got a TikTok attention span. But we talked about my daughter who turned 12, mm-hmm. and we were sort of reflecting on that. And I said, 12. She said, what were you doing at 12? And I said, 12. Let's see. That was the year that I found my first flattened out but completely intact Benson and Hedges 100 cigarette in the parking lot of the Brown and Gold candy store / video game place / liquor store. Mm. And I took it home and smoked it with Eric Vaughn. I was like, oh my God. How did I marry you? Well, in large part because I concealed that fact. Mm-hmm. But I say it because it's important to who I became as a person. And I'm a Generation X guy. I lived an ungoverned life. My parents divorced early. I did my own thing. I smoked and drank when I was 13 and had my own senses of personal justice. It was like street justice, and so I grew up with this attitude of, people get what they deserve and, life's unfair and you got to fight for what's right.
You got to go and get it.
You better, because, other people are gonna. And
nobody's going to give it to you.
No. And so I got through high school. I went to UCLA. I studied economics and business, which really at UCLA means accounting. And that was a struggle. And I thought, oh God, I need some sort of anchor in my life. So I'm going to be a CPA. Wow, that totally, I'm going to be a CPA and I'm going to join the Air Force. That, because, it's World War II all over again. And I'm going to be some kind of wealthy swashbuckler. Okay. you get ideas in your mind when you're a teenager that like don't necessarily mesh with the rest of the universe. Being a CPA and being an Air Force officer are a lot alike. And
Really?
it might be like, yeah, because it's all about like how well you can follow the rules. Like you got to color in the lines and it's got to look perfect. And we don't want any of your creative, justice-oriented, aggressive, truth to power energy here. You know, we just want you to, like you said earlier, not fuck it up.
Yeah.
And that
Shut up and listen.
Shut up and color. Shut up and listen. Shut up to shut up.
Yeah.
And go through life. And I could kind of see where that would lead, and it wasn't for me. I needed to spend my time on the earth, like doing stuff that made a difference. And so I kind of got like, a little bit sort of like, maybe, you might try a different military service. I won't say I got kicked out of the Air Force, but there was like a couple incidents that happened that, I was given the encouragement to like go look elsewhere, which was really depressing because like I can't even make it in the Air Force ROTC. That's what a loser I am.
This was during in
college,
UCLA.
UCLA. And then I started really flailing in accounting, like getting like C's, because dude, that's boring. Like you got a debit here and credit here and ledger there. And okay, I'm not denigrating the practice, but it really wasn't for me. And so I kind of like was bummed out, and then A Few Good Men came out.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, you could do that for a living. Like that, I feel this. That feels like me. And then my fraternity brother was going to join the Marines, and I was hungry one day. He goes, I'm going out for pizza down to Westwood. Do you want to come? And I'm like, yeah, because I'm hungry. And I ended up hanging out with these dudes who were all joining the Marine Corps. And I'm like, oh, these people are like me. And I ended up joining the Marine Corps. And when I got there, it was like, oh my God, I'm home. Like everyone has a scar over their eye from that fight they got in at a bar. Everyone has some kind of tattoo. Everyone's got some kind of attitude. Everyone's got some kind of idea about how it ought to be done. And, nobody's here to like take shit from anybody. And that was like my entire officer candidate school class, like just a bunch of like aggressive men and women in their own platoon, who were just like out to make a difference and do things because they were hard. And it worked perfectly for me. And I went to Georgetown Law School, which I found to be a complete waste of time. And I will never give you a single cent because you already took too much from me, which I paid a ton of interest on and gave me nothing in return except for 3 years of bullshit from people that didn't know how to do it. And if you're listening, Dean Judy Areen, long retired, because my God, I'm so old. The best teachers were all the adjuncts that came in at night because they were lawyers who were actually practicing. And these are the only people worth listening to because my experience of academia is that the people who can't teach, which is like horrific. So anyway, to make a longer story short, I got posted to Japan where I was responsible for as a lieutenant, I'm responsible for getting all the Marines out of Japanese jail who've gotten drunk and passed out in some, people's house that they left open. Then I come to California and I'm a criminal defense attorney until I start realizing, wait a minute, the prosecution's got to build this entire case against my guy. They got to get like 11 witnesses together in one place, all on the same tune, and all I have to do is like kick out one leg of the stool. Hey, however you feel about criminal people who are accused of crimes, all right, it's America. You get a defense attorney. You get a fair shake. And, did most of my clients get convicted? Yes, because they did it, right? And it was really hard to kind of like, get away from that. Like, my hand was bloody because I had a bloody nose. Like, no, you fucking, So anyway, but I believe in the fair shake, and fighting for these people and for that kind of justice was fascinating, and I started to crack the code. Like, I realized, wait, they can't try two cases at once. That's the logistical overload. They can't deal with the fact that I'm making a big deal about this, and now I've got their attention over here, but what I'm actually going to do is this. And then it's like, oh my God, face goes white, prosecution falls apart, my client gets acquitted. But don't worry, goes out the next week and does the same thing and then gets convicted for it because the criminals that get caught like aren't necessarily, they're the unlucky ones, but by and large they're like not super intelligent. They didn't think it all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so once I realized that, Peng, I immediately was promoted downstairs to be a prosecutor, because they're like, well, we're not going to have Mike Cardoza, screwing up the prosecution with all of his dirty tricks. Like, he's been up there for a year, he's figured it out. That's too dangerous. We don't want that. And he also knows it. Like, you can't tell him anything, like, because he already knows what we're going to do. So then I became a prosecutor, and I realized, oh my gosh, this is a challenge. You got to put everything together and do it right and respect people's rights and make that stuff happen. But as I alluded to earlier, we tried cases every week, and we didn't do motions and we didn't do emails. I mean, this was like in the early days of email. We just did trials, seat the jury, go to trial. Like, and then what happened? And you did that, didn't you? Like, well, yeah, I did. And it was dramatic and it was fun. And I loved it. It was great. And then the war happened. I was going to get out of the Marine Corps because I'm like, I can see where this is going. And I don't really want to be a lieutenant colonel in 20 years making exactly, $9,354 a month. Like, oh my God, the military lives in a second world environment protecting a first world nation. Like, when you go on a military base, you'll be shocked. You're like, oh, that's the crappiest Dunkin' Donuts I've ever seen. Yeah, okay, well, it's like 10 times better than the chow hall where there's flies all over. Not saying I didn't love it, but it's a fascinating dichotomy. Like, coming out of the Marine Corps back into the first world in America was amazing. Like, oh my God, I feel free. But the war happened, and I really wanted to go. So I stayed another 4 years for that.
This was
the second Iraq War. After
9/11?
So I was a captain on 9/11.
Oh, okay.
And, whoa. I mean, talk about a rift in time, man. Anyway, from there, I went to Iraq, and I was there for 6 months. And then I went to Germany. I went back to Japan, and did a bunch of other stuff. And I left when I was 36. I was a single 36-year-old major. I already kind of knew like how to fix everything. The weapon of a lance corporal is the M16. The weapon of a staff officer major is a colonel, right? You tell your colonel where to go, and you pat him, and he fires at the other colonels, and you try not to get your colonels fighting each other, which is a funny perspective, because when I became a colonel 10 to 15 years later, I realized like I'd go to the major and go, okay, what do you want me to do now? Like, all right, sir. Well, I think if you do this and you do that, and that's how leadership works, right? Let's empower everybody, and we can return to that theme a little bit later. But when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was 36 years old. I was single. I was feeling like kind of like that creepy 36-year-old single guy in the Marine Corps who's never going to have a family and settle down. So I got out. I did a couple of years of really interesting consulting work in Afghanistan and Pakistan.
By the way, this age is exactly the age I am now. I'm 37 now. So,
okay.
Yeah. So keep going. So you were in Afghanistan.
Yeah. So, and that was a blast.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No pun intended. So that's not very funny at all.
So you were doing consulting work.
The hotel was bombed and stormed, and a bunch of people were killed not long after I was there. And the Marriott in Islamabad also exploded like 2 weeks after I left. Anyway, so I did that for a couple of years, and then a buddy of mine from the Marine Corps says, hey, and I had wanted to start a business for a long time. When I was in college, I got sucked into this pitch about student painters. You see these signs all around, like painted by student painters. Well, they come around your fraternity house and they're like, hey, how'd you like to spend the summer owning your own house painting business? And I was like, wow. Because I've been working since I was 12, because I had to, because, my parents were like, I don't know, doing their own thing. This is like a Gen X thing, all right? You'd think it was child neglect, but it wasn't. Back in the day, when I was 6, I walked a mile to school, back and forth each way, because that was no big deal. Like, it's not the thing.
Same.
Okay.
Same.
Back when the world was normal. All right. So anyway, I've been working since I was 12, and I'm like, yeah, I want to do the student painters thing. So for a whole summer, I sold paint jobs. I hired crews. I supervised the crews. I often painted myself when, shit went sideways. I collected the money. I marketed more, and it was exhilarating and exhausting. And it was kind of like, I got like a little bit of a fix. You know what I mean? It was like
fulfilling.
It was like my first beer. Like, wow, this has got so much going on. And so I knew I wanted to run a business. And my buddy from the Marine Corps called me and he goes, "Hey, I got this great idea for business. It's 2000. This is important. It's 2007. And if you can remember, like, oh my God, these were boom years. Like 2006, 2007. When they say, and this is a line from back in the 20s, when the elevator boy is like giving you stock tips, it's
a bubble.
Probably sell,
yeah.
So that was happening, and he said, "Well, we're going to do this thing where we buy distressed consumer debt for pennies on the dollar, and then we're going to sue people to collect all of it." I'm like, "Wait, what? You can do this?" He's like, "Oh yeah." So I've been doing it for this family friend, and you buy these charged off credit cards, that people didn't pay. You pay like 5 cents on the dollar for it, so you get like $100 debt for $5. That's the extent of math we're going to do today. And then you sue to collect like the $100 plus the interest that's accrued. And I'm like, okay, in the abstract, right? I'm like, well, that sounds great. I'm like, but were we debt collectors? He goes, yeah, but here's the thing. He goes, look at it this way. We're the good guys, okay? The dude went to Best Buy, spent $1,000 on a TV, never paid for it, and now we're going to settle the debt that we bought for 5 cents for like 25 cents. So we make 5 times what we bought the thing for, and he gets the TV for $250 like 3 years later. I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty good. Yeah. So it's 2007. We wrote up this business plan, and put out a paper sack to friends and family, had $1 million in 6 weeks, and went and like hired staff, got an office. I moved to Virginia Beach, Virginia, and we bought like $750,000 worth of debt, which is like today we purchased like $27 million worth.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're taking off in the plane, right? And we're going up and we're going up and we're like, we got a business. We're finance guys.
2007.
Right. And all of a sudden, like, oh, Captain, we're losing power. We're losing power. Like, work the throttle. Like what was sort of like sky and sun and clouds started becoming like earth and then buildings and trees. And, and we're just like, oh my God, because the consumer's ability to repay was like nothing. I mean, that was the financial meltdown of 2008. And, we went from like looking like it was going to go like that to looking like it was going to go like this.
Mm-hmm.
So that began like a long 7-year odyssey during which I met my wife, got married, had kids, had a wonderful partnership with my business partner, did a merger, did an acquisition, did a bunch of like interesting business development and business like structural stuff. Hired staff, fired staff, built systems, did joint ventures with other companies, did like a lot of like, I guess you would say like kind of advanced business moves really out of desperation because our core business was just failing.
Mm-hmm.
And we also got sued a lot because it like is impossible to do it in a compliant way.
Mm-hmm.
And
really? We got to touch back on this.
We got to hit that, but debt collections, maybe not the subject. But the long and short of it is we gutted it out for 7 years until there was just like no room left and the plane had to like come in for a landing. It was a little bit bumpy and like some people got hurt and, and we got all out. And my wife's like, okay, so time to move back to California. So I came back to California. I'm 44 years old.
This was like 2012?
It's 2014.
2014, okay.
So now you peg my age. Fine, okay.
I'm just keeping track of the timeline because this is important. Yeah,
I got you. But I'm going to start like my grandparents did. I'm going to start taking a decade off my age. When they died in their early 90s,
mm-hmm.
Their friends at the funeral were shocked to find out like when they were born in the 19th century because they'd been lying about their age so long that all their friends were 20 years younger.
This is a complete tangent, but I just found this out the other day.
Do it. Yeah.
So there's been a massive downgrade in the amount of people who report themselves as, how you see the news is like the world's oldest person passed away today. You know,
Yeah.
like of octogenarians, like people older than 110 years old. There's been a massive downward trend of those people, and scientists were trying to figure out. They did a study. They were trying to figure out. It's like, why are people? Our medical care is getting a lot better. Why are people not living to this extended long age again? And then they did this massive study. Turns out these people were all just lying because they put the data up, and the trend falls exactly in line with people who did not have accurate birth records. So there were all these people that were saying they were 120 years old, 115 years old. Like, they pretty much all of them just didn't know when they were born.
Yeah, because there was a fucking fire in the Yorba Linda birth record department in 1910.
Exactly.
So all that stuff was destroyed. And so these people say because my dad, he's like 89 years old, and he goes around telling people, you know, wow, I'm almost 90. I mean, he's being truthful. His buddy lies. We played golf with him the other day. He is 93. He told the cart lady, you know, that comes around with like beers, he told her he was 94. And when she left, I'm like, Pat, you're full of shit. You are not 94. You got 6 more months to go. He's like, well, I'm almost there. So there's like this, like, you know, you want to say you're older than you are because like you're proud of, you know, having accomplished that. And so I think it led people to lie. And also there was a tension, and people's relatives probably said, oh, I think my grandmother's this old. And the Yorba Linda Records Office, along with the ones in Okinawa during the war, along with like, you know, give me another blue zone. Sardinia, you know, not the world's greatest record keeper since the late like 1800s. So yeah, you're exactly right. Now, where was I?
So you were moving back to.
Oh my God. Yeah. It was 2014, dude. I was devastated. I mean, here I am, a 44-year-old, like credentialed professional, right? And I grew up. I'm Generation X, so I think. Well,
and you just had your daughters at this point.
Oh, dude, my kids are. My kids are 2 months. My kids are 3 months old and 2 years and 3 months old. And man, and I'm coming from Virginia Beach. And I'm like broke. And I'm trying to move to the Bay Area in California. And I'm not just like, I'm like broken mentally too. Like, I remember moving out of my house in Virginia Beach. It was late at night. It was raining. My family had gone on ahead to the hotel we were going to stay at before we left Virginia Beach on the plane the next morning. And I closed up the house. And I had like failed. I'd failed my family. Wow. Didn't expect to have an Oprah couch moment. Don't know how long it's going to last. I'd failed my family. My wife, who was younger than me, had like trusted me. My kids were counting on me, and it was a failure. And, you know, plenty of people have had it worse, but I know how that feels to be 44 years old and to have a family counting on you, and to have like, to feel, I mean, it's not like I fucked up, but I didn't make it. I wasn't there for my family. And I don't think it was through any fault of my own, except for maybe we just hung on to the business like too long because we had friends and family investors and didn't want to disappoint them. They had invested in us. You know, they're like, well, these guys are Marines and, you know, they're going to be faithful and they're going to make it work. And so we kept like tightening our own belts until we didn't have anything left. And man, that was a fucking dark moment. So I get to California, and this is just for fans of the old version of Star Trek, so I'll keep it short, but I feel like I owe it to everybody to keep that thing going. There's an episode where Captain Kirk, he gets beamed down. There's a show, and it ran. Don't try to tell me you are when you're not. It was the late 60s, like 20 years before you were born, and it's called Star Trek.
I'm a huge Shatner fan. Remember I was talking about Denny Crane?
Does that involve Shatner?
Yeah, that's who he played.
Okay, I left Bill Shatner like right around 1969. Like after that, he became like somebody
keep
else.
Going. Star Trek episode.
Anyway, Kirk gets beamed down to the planet there in Malibu, right? Because it's cheap, with the Gorn, some dude in like a big lizard costume. And these omniscient beings are going to fight Kirk and the Gorn captain to the death to see which species survives, right? And Kirk is getting his ass handed to him because the Gorn's huge and the Gorn's got claws and the Gorn is like screwing Kirk up badly. And Kirk's got his guts coming out and he's got his face slashed. And, he ultimately just scampers around the desert and he finds like a bamboo segment, and then he finds a rock and then he finds some weird black powder and then he finds some weird white powder, and you know where this is going. He mixes it all together into kind of like this primordial mortar cannon and then fires it at the Gorn and kills him and wins. And like this is what I had going on. I landed in California. I had a California bar license and I had my family and that was it. Like, what am I going to do? What the fuck am I going to do? Like, I'm unhireable. And you'll see. Well, maybe you won't, but you can't get a job if you're over 40. Like it's not possible.
Really?
They'll figure it out.
You'll hire me though, right?
No, and because you're too independent-minded. No, we're going to work together.
Gotcha.
We're going to work together for years.
I was talking to my dad, and he was asking. He's like, "Would you hire you?" I was like, "No way, no. I'm a absolutely atrocious employee.
I'm a loose cannon. Yeah. I've got my own ideas." And so literally, like, I was just scrambling around, like, looking for what to do. And it occurred to me, like, I remember when we ran this huge law firm. It was like a gigantic collection law firm on the East Coast. It covered 3 states. We had 100 employees. We sued 3,500 people a month. And I was like, and we got sued all the time because you make like a mistake or here's the deal. It wasn't practically possible to run that company in a way that was compliant with the consumer protection laws and still make the kind of money that we needed to make in order to pay the investors. Okay?
The collateral damage was necessary.
You couldn't spend enough money to ensure that every consumer got all of their rights and still have a business that made money.
That's crazy. I mean, that makes sense.
But it's crazy. What's happening. Yeah. You see it happening in our practice, right?
Yeah, that's literally what happens, yeah.
Which I can't wait to get to later. It's going to be fun. Yeah. And I'll stop my personal story here shortly. And I'll stop it, like, I'll do the next couple months and then I'll figure it out.
No, this is amazing. So
I realized I had 3 things. I just had to put 3 things together. One was fee shifting consumer protection law. Right? There's when we sue people, we don't charge them any money up front, no money out of pocket, right? Because we can sue the defendant for our attorney's fees. So, that's the thing, right? No money out of pocket. And if we lose, we just eat it and that's fine. But we don't really ever lose because we just pick the winning cases and most cases win. So anyway, fee shifting consumer protection, which I knew all about because I'd been on the other side of the curtain, right? 2 was systems. This law firm that we acquired had like a bazillion people and the payroll was eating up way too much money. And we're like, wait a minute, this isn't going to go in a good direction. We got to get the payroll down. And in order to do that, we've got to automate this stuff. So we have less errors. We have better customer service. We have more profits. We have happier employees. Are you happy if your job is to staple stacks of papers together? No, you're not. Like Susan could do something better somewhere else. So we had to devise and develop systems to make this big business run because it was, 3,500 lawsuits a month is like a lot, dude. And there's only 20 work days in a month. This is like thousands, like tens of thousands of lawsuits a year. So we had these systems. So it's fee shifting consumer protection. We put that together with systems. All right. And then we'll put that together with marketing, like personal injury level marketing. What's going on in the personal injury world? Okay. Like I get this question a lot when I send out a retainer agreement and the client sees like, oh, no money, no money out of pocket sounds great. But this 45% that you're going to charge me, that seems high. I'm like, oh, okay. Are you feeling like, what's in your mind? Like, well, it seems like a third is about right. I'm like, yeah, you know what? A third is right for personal injury because here's what happens. You're going to go to the doctor that they pick for you. The attorney's clerk is going to collect up all your medical records. They're going to put it in a piece of software that's going to spit out this report. And then some clerk is going to send that to the insurance adjuster at State Farm, and you're going to get the policy limit $25,000 paid back. All right. That's why they're charging 33%, because they never file a lawsuit. They never take a deposition. They never fight a motion, and they never go to trial. It's all just like this process, this like claims process.
Yeah.
And once consumers know that, they're like, oh. And I'm like, yeah, you got to file a federal lawsuit to fix your credit report. And it's like, oh, why does that happen? And we can talk about that later. But I realized that these three things, systems, fee shifting consumer protection, and PI level marketing. When I say PI level, I mean personal injury level. Like, how are we going to talk to the people that we want to talk to? How are we going to talk to what the marketers call this avatar client? Like, how am I going to reach people through those 3 pages of Google that Experian and Wells Fargo and Bank of America have already dominated? When people type in like, I'm a victim of identity theft and my bank won't fix my stuff, or somebody hacked $20,000 out of my bank and the bank won't give it back. Like, how do I reach people past that 3rd page of Google? Like, how do I tell people, wait, over here, look, there's a whole bunch of laws made by Congress and you don't have to pay anything for it until on the back end when you win money. And it's probably more than you lost. And you can come to me and we'll do it. How do we get that going? So 10 years ago, on that three things in a spare bedroom of my dad's house, because where I lived in an apartment with my wife and 2 kids and my mother-in-law was too small, I put together the Cardoza Law Corporation, and here we are today. And I do the fun stuff, which is this, and trials and depositions, and taking care of the people that take care of all of you, all of our clients, all of our potential clients. And so for me, the behind the curtain has been the Marine Corps leadership experience, which is get the hell out of the way and let the best people do what they do best, and don't get in there with like bright ideas. If you're not a marketing guy, don't try. Just get a marketing person. If you're not great at California state litigation, don't make it up. Just hire somebody who's great at that and get out of the way and let them do their job.
Yeah. I made this analogy to my dad the other day. And it's like, if you're making sandwiches, focus on making sandwiches. Don't focus on growing wheat. You know what I mean? Like, don't just go out and buy some bread. Don't try to raise a farm and grow wheat. And then, because that's just not efficient. You're not going to make a good sandwich that way. It's never going to happen.
That's why people need to pick a lawyer that does their thing, right? Like, and we have a lot of satisfied customers because we just do like 2 things, really just one, mostly identity theft, and that's it. The bank hacking thing, we do that too, because it's kind of the same. Like, oh my God, my money's gone, or my credit's screwed up, or somebody used my credit card. Like, that's all kind of the same little thing. But that's all we do. And so we get happy customers, and then they call and they're like, oh, I've got this property issue. Yeah, I got a guy. I can connect you with a guy, and that's how I'm going to satisfy you. And you see it in McDonald's, and you see it in that's a process thing. But think of a company that just does like one thing, like the Tesla. Really, are those cars really all that different? I mean, I think they're just like pretty much one car with like different bodies. So when you do one thing, you were talking to Nick about this in a different podcast. When you do one thing over and over again, you know what's going to happen before it happens. And I think that's been our strength, is being in this particular market where people, and we got to talk about this, dude. We got to talk about why it is that when you get this text message, did you spend $6,000 in Canada, and you text back no, why they still put it on your bill. Like, that has to be a story. We're going to have to explain this to people. Yeah. Because people are going crazy about that. Yeah. Anyway, that's my life story, and I've been rambling, and it all started maybe with a cigarette when I was 12. All right. So by the way, I gave up smoking when I was 15. I feel much better.
That's good. I gave up smoking I had my
Chinese,
last.
you have to smoke.
Yeah, it was definitely a thing. I had my last cigarette in Poland.
In Poland?
Yeah, in Poland. I was in Old Town Warsaw, and I grabbed a pack because everybody was smoking, and I grabbed a pack of cigarette. And I don't know if it was just like a bad cigarette or what it was, but it made me so sick. I almost threw up in the middle of the town square in Warsaw, and I don't think I've had a cigarette ever since. But yeah. Anyway, so just to loop it back and bring it all together, found a cigarette when you were 13 years old.
12.
When you're 12 years old, started running a business of doing yard work, you said, or
delivering papers when I was 12.
Delivering papers, and start hiring people, start building out your processes, figuring stuff out, UCLA, accounting, ROTC, then Japan, prosecuting and defending
Marine Corps,
Marine
Georgetown, trial attorney, the debt buying business, the acquisition of the law firm, the tearful departure from and failure in my mid 40s, and the departure from the East Coast, landing in California with like 2 young kids and a wife who was like, who the hell did I marry? And figuring it out from there. And now we have like 12 or 13 employees, and it is just a joy. I love. Your favorite day is Monday. It's not mine, but it definitely is one of the work days. God, I love my job.
Yeah, and I think Mike is being a little bit humble here. He's not going into a lot of details, but I mean, he's in California, what we do, what Mike does, what we do, identity theft, consumer protection, bank fraud. Like Mike is one of the preeminent guys, right? Like if you Google, identity theft victim, right? Mike is one of the first guys that pop up.
Do they come up?
Oh yeah. I've been trying. Yeah, I'm stealing all your secrets. I'm looking at all this stuff.
Because there's not enough of us, dude. I'm telling you, and that's why we do cases together, and that's why we work together, and that's why we all know each other. Because like, there's not enough. Like,
there's absolutely not.
Keep coming.
The thing I hear the most from clients is, "I'm so glad I found you because I didn't know you exist."
To find you.
Yeah, they don't. I talked to this other lawyer because nobody knows any of this stuff. Nobody knows FCRA, nobody knows FDCPA, and then nobody knows Rosenthal, and nobody knows CCRAA. Like nobody knows any of this stuff. And Californians are so lucky because our protection is so robust, right? And but anyways, that's quite a story, man. And if nothing else, that's the ultimate demonstration that you don't fail until you give up.
Yes.
Right? You don't fail until you give up. And, and I tell this to my girl all the time, I was like, dreams are free. Dreams are free. But the thing is, everybody can have a dream. You just have to go out and get it. Right? Like all this stuff is out there. You have to go out and get it. And if you have the motivation, you have the work ethic, and you have a little creativity, you mix it all together, anything's possible. Because this is America. This is why my parents brought me here. Because, my father, my mother, they didn't have a choice in what they wanted to do, right? I had a choice. And Americans, sometimes I think they forget that the availability of a choice is such a golden thing. The idea of choosing is so foreign to most people. Like if you grew up in Afghanistan or you grew up in Egypt or something, like you don't get to choose whether you do the Air Force or the Marines or you do a CPA or you're a criminal lawyer. You don't get to choose. In America, we get to choose. We get to choose where we live. We get to choose what we do. We get to choose where we eat. Like we were talking about before this, we're talking about where we're going to have lunch. And just like in some places you choose when you're going to eat, like, because it's just food. Because if you don't, you have a choice of, do you eat food in the morning or you eat at night? Because we don't have enough food for one meal. Yeah,
so foreign to us.
Yeah, it's brilliant, man. And it's great, and we get to choose to help people. We get to choose to support our families, and that's just a beautiful thing. All right, personal stories and life origins, and we're gonna save some of this for the movie eventually, right? Or at least a memoir. Let's talk about work,
please. So,
Mike, you guys really focus on helping ID theft victims and bank fraud victims.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a million, but tell me one of your favorite ID theft victim stories. What happened? who it happened to and how it ended.
Yeah, this is a good one because I'm going to tell you about one that's public.
Actually, before we that, can you actually explain a little bit what ID theft case it normally entails and what is ID theft?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, nobody knows how to stop. And if you're like, we're all consumers, right? Like the jury is a consumer, the judge is a consumer, the people who work for Chase Bank are consumers. We're all like people in our credit-driven economy, right? Like we're all, in this United States. And so if you're alive today and you're not still paying in cash and sending smoke signals, if you got a smartphone or a credit card and checking account on your computer, you're getting all kinds of messages like, don't touch that, and there's phishing, and there's spam, and, there's a malicious link, and, beware of fraud, and we get a two-factor authentication, and you got to send a text to your phone, and you got to put in that number to get access to your bank account. That's because, like this whole new electronic universe of money, like I remember harkening back to UCLA, M1 or M2, whatever, like the cash money supply of the United States, like how much of the money in the United States is actually in money, like paper and coins and stuff? It's like 0.0002% of it is like in cash, which is freaky because all of our money is in ones and zeros. Like it's all just like digits, like billions of electrons like swirling around.
They're just ideas.
Dude, I don't know what it is, but when I get thinking about it, it freaks me out. And I mean, the money is just actually paper. So that's also a little bit wacky. But anyway, the reason all this stuff is happening is because, the hackers and this computer-driven industry, this computer-driven life is always evolving. Like there's always a new MacBook coming out. There's always a new iPhone. Who except for possibly my dad, thinks you could plug in your 15-year-old laptop and go to your bank account? Like who would do that? Or, possibly some viewers watching, maybe. But you can't. Your 15 or 20-year-old computer is like functionally dead. In fact, it dies like after about 5 or 6 years because it doesn't have the computing power to deal with the two-factor chip quantum gobbledygook that has to be in place in order to keep the security. Well, security from who? Like, security from a whole shitload of people, like some random dude in Vladivostok, right, who's got an internet connection and is hacking into Chase Bank, or some guy that figures out how to call the customer service and pretend to be you, or, millions and millions upon millions of transactions are happening like every day. Okay, you going to go to, I keep bringing up McDonald's. You're going to go to McDonald's and get an egg McMuffin. You're going to get a coffee at Starbucks later, possibly going to buy something from your kids online, and then maybe like go out to dinner. Okay, that's you, and those are your 5 electronic transactions for today. Okay, there's 300 million people at least in this country. If they each do 5 transactions a day, 5 times 300 is like 1,500. So it's like 1,500 million, which is like
1.5 billion.
Boy, thank you for doing the math. 1.5 billion transactions per day. I just let that soak in, in terms of like market penetration, like how much of a percent of that, if you're a hacker, does it take to make $1 million? Like how much of that do you have to disrupt and clone or siphon or, fraud or whatever, for lack of a better term, to make $1 million? Not much, right? Because there's so much economic activity happening electronically. All right. So what are we talking about?
What is identity theft? What is identity theft?
Yeah. Dude, it cannot be stopped. Like banks are freaking out. everyone's freaking out about it. Identity theft is simple. It's like somebody pretends to be you and either like takes over your credit card and starts making charges in Arkansas for Big O Tires, or even better, I just pretend to be you and I start opening accounts in your name, but I get the credit card delivered to my house. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cash advance that credit card, so I get all the cash out. And I'm going to make a little bit of a payment. I'm going to make a payment on the credit card so that the credit card company thinks that it's you, right? And then they're going to up my limit some more. And then I'm going to take more cash out at the casino. And then finally, I'm going to just, throw that one in the trash when it stops working, and I'm going to use a different one. If I'm not a good criminal, I will be found behind the 7-Eleven, all whacked out with like a plastic bag full of silver spray paint and a bunch of methamphetamine with like a shitload of credit cards and IDs that aren't mine. And the cops are going to be like, "You're an identity thief." Okay. That's like maybe what, 0.1% of the people that are actually doing it.
I'd say less.
Right. Where's the money going? The FBI thinks a lot of it is going offshore to state actors. North Korea, Russia, China, state-sponsored hacking and identity theft. It's pulling money from the United States financial system in order to benefit their own country, and they're pulling it in dollars. And so identity theft and bank hacking go really, really close together, because all the bank stuff, like the money is also electronic, the credit is electronic. So all we really have, let's say, we're in Vladivostok, all we really need to do is to penetrate just a couple little bank nodes and start siphoning off money. And I think you had talked to Nick about the Electronic Funds Transfer Act. Okay. The reason that that's the way it is like back in the 70s, the computer came out. And for banks, the computer was like, "Oh my God, we're going to make so much money because we no longer have to employ these people to write out the deposit slip and do the gummy stamp. And we're not going to have pilots take the canceled checks and fly them overnight, through Mammoth Mountain to get to Utah where they all go to the central bank." This used to happen. This used to be the way banking was. It was all by paper. Okay. But in the 70s, the computers came around and the banks were like, "Hey man, we're going to do away with the paper and we're just going to go computer." And Congress, us, the people, were like, "Whoa, TO, man, hold on a second. Like, you can't just convert our checks, which feel like money, but they're not. You can't just convert that into like, what is it? Digits? Like it's flowing out through my head." They're like, "Yeah, we can." They're like, "No, we're going to have a law. Like okay, here's the deal. You can do that, but we're going to pass this law, this Electronic Funds Transfer Act thing, okay? And you need to get on board with it, Bankers Association. You got to sign up for this thing and get all your lobbyists to like bow down and stop fighting it, because we're going to pass a law that protects all the consumers. And here's what it says, all right? If you do your electronic banking bullshit or whatever, remember it's 1977, if you're going to do this electronic banking bullshit stuff or whatever happens, if anything happens to that money, okay, because you're going to make a ton of money off this, right? Like you're going to make 10 times as much money because there's no more paper, there's no more tellers, there's no more nothing. You make 10 times as much money. The deal is, if you lose that money, you're going to give it back to the customer. Well, if they take it out, no. If you lose it, I don't care how it happens, you're going to give it back to the consumer. Okay, that sounds fine. No problem. Fast forward, what's it been since 77, since Star Wars came out? The most seminal
50 years
ever. Okay, it's been something like that. Okay, what's happened? Oh my God, there's all these people in Vladivostok that are cracking your school's first credit union or your Senate, Capitol Hill credit union. And, now all of a sudden the banks are under attack and they don't know what to do. Like, how do we stop it? We cannot possibly stop it. And we can't just like follow the Electronic Funds Transfer Act. I mean, that's from 1977. Back when we said it was okay, we guaranteed that this money was safe. When you open a checking account, they're like, "And your money's safe with us." But it's not, because if it gets stolen and you report it stolen, we're probably going to just tell you to go pound sand because we can't afford to reimburse everybody for all this stuff that North Korea is hacking out of us. It's terrible.
Yeah, how would these banks? They don't have resources and money to prevent this. Right?
Dude, it's ever evolving and nobody knows how to stop it. So it should freak you out. And I've got another funny story about my dad, but I'll save that for later. You asked me about identity theft, okay? And I talked about bank hacking, which is where somebody sucks money out of your bank account. Identity theft is like credit card fraud, where somebody uses your credit card or opens an account or a mortgage in your name, and all of a sudden, Credit Karma tells you like, "Oh man, your score has gone way down because you got a big O tires account in Arkansas." Mm-hmm. But you don't need tires, and you've never been to Arkansas. I'll tell you where I got that example. I got that example from the case of Scott Huffman versus Chase Bank.
Okay.
And I'm talking about it public because because Chase got smushed. A lot of times when we resolve these cases, they are in confidential settlements. Some of my clients are like, I'm not signing no secret hush money settlement. Like, no, I don't care how much money it is. I'm not going to swear that I'm never going to talk about it. I just want to tell my story to the jury and let everybody know what's going on, and they should be punished. Great. I love those cases. I love going to trial. But this was many of them are confidential, so I can't say the name, like Scott Huffman versus Chase. And that's a classic case because Scott Huffman is like a guy dressed mostly like me, and he's got a family kind of like I do, and he looks sort of like I do, and he lives up in Orinda, California, at least he did a few years ago when he called. And he called me up and was like, "Hey, Chase sent me a text that said, did you just spend $6,623 in Canada?" Dude, it's COVID. Like, I work from home. I did not. So I typed back, no. Right? Mm-hmm. You get a text. Did you just spend $6,000 in Canada? He's in California. Mm-hmm. Answer, no.
This is on his credit card?
Yeah. Oh. Did you just spend $6,600 in Canada on your Amazon credit card? Mm-hmm. So it's a text. Scott Huffman to Chase. No. Beep. So what appears on his next Chase credit card bill?
$6,600.
$6,623.
Okay.
Charged in Ottawa, Canada. Must be a mistake, right? I already said no. Scott picks up the phone. Yeah, hey. Call the number on the back. Yeah, I'm calling about the $6,600. Like, that wasn't me. Oh, really? Okay, well, we're so sorry to hear that. Press 3 to hold, and, press 4 to go to India, press 5 to go to Chile, press 6 to go fuck yourself, or whatnot. Okay, well, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. All right, bye, click. All right, thanks. Phew. Things happen, right? And we've all had this experience where your bank says, "Hey, did you charge this?" And you press no, and they're like, "Okay, thank you very much. USAA is trying to keep you secure. Protecting those who protect America." Well, guess what? Scott Huffman and his wife get a letter from Chase Bank the next day saying, "Thank you very much for reporting whatever. We have determined that it's in fact you, and you owe us $6,623. So Scott Huffman goes on the internet, right? And this is like 5 years ago or whatever. And I guess searching down through all the pages of whatever, Chase, open a Chase. Chase is here. Chase is for you. Guaranteed Chase. Identity theft protection from Chase. And I'm telling one story, but this story, I must get, 30 of these calls a month. It's the same story.
It's an avatar.
Yeah, if you want to get marketing geeky speak about it, I mean, it's exactly what we do.
Yeah.
This is exactly what the firm is designed to do. All the processes are designed to serve Scott and Sarah Huffman, whoever you are out there, and you got this problem, here's where you come. Okay, so here's what happens. We get all the information, and we file a lawsuit because that's what you got to do. It's not like I can write a letter. I can't be like, "Dear Chase, it's getting serious because Mike Cardoza is writing you a letter." They don't give a shit. There's no place for those letters to go. There's no button to fix, pardon my French. I told myself I wasn't going to swear, but I'm going to say it. There's no button at Chase to unfuck this. Once it's been determined that Scott is responsible for the $6,623 in Canada, that's it. All right, you're done. You got to file a federal lawsuit in order to fix this, which is what we got to do, which is why it's going to cost you 45%. Okay, because this is like a big, heavy lift. All right, so we file a lawsuit against Chase. All right, now we're Chase. Well, hey, this is what we're representing Chase Bank, and you need to withdraw your case right away, or we're going to sanction you for filing a false claim. Like, dude, what are you talking about? Scott wasn't in Canada. Well, we're the lawyers, and blah blah blah, and bullshit. So this goes on for like a long time. It's so ridiculous. All right, you know how like when you file a case, the court tells you have to go to a mandatory mediation?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it happens before any of the evidence comes out,
mm-hmm.
which is a total waste of time.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for anybody to do any talking to anybody during a mediation because it's bullshit and we're not really going to get to a resolution.
Yeah.
So I go there, me and Scott Huffman go there, and Chase goes there, and we have the judge. And it's not the judge for our case, it's a different judge so that, they can't be tainted or whatever, but it is a judge.
Yeah.
It's a magistrate judge, like with the robe and, can throw you in jail for contempt. And we have this like session, and then he puts the defendants in their room. This is how mediation works. He puts the defendants in their room. Me and Scott go in this room. And then the judge goes back and forth
mm-hmm.
and tries to settle the case.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're having a federal lawsuit about $6,600 from Canada. I mean, dude, whatever. Okay. I roll my eyes at my own profession a lot too. It's like, wow, what am I doing here?
You're helping people.
I know, but dude, like I shouldn't have a job, right? It shouldn't work this way.
You're right.
Okay?
We should not. Like, this stuff should not happen.
I should be doing something else, like divorce work or, surrogacy or, whatever other interesting things are out there. We shouldn't have this job. We should be working ourselves out of a job. But it's not happening. It's only like getting worse. And I'm a consumer and you're a consumer, and that freaks me out too. Anyway, this judge comes into our room where me and Scott are, and he looks at me and he goes, "Counsel, I don't even know why you're here. I don't even know what you're doing in my courtroom. Like, what's the issue?" I'm like, "Oh, Your Honor, I don't know if you've read the complaint, but, under the Fair Credit Reporting Act and the California Identity Theft, blah, 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 blah." I'm talking like lawyer talk to the judge, right? Because that's like, they talk in lawyer talk. So I talk to lawyer talk. He's like, "No, I just don't get why you're bringing this case. Like, look," and he tells me this. "The same thing happened to me in law school. I went to law school in Arkansas." And now I'm like, oh God, where's this going? And Scott is doing his thing like I told him to do. He's like dressed like this and saying nothing. I'm like, just watch. Nothing's going to happen today. Just chill out. Relax. No pressure. So here comes the law school story, right? I went to law school in Arkansas, and one day I got an alert, and it was from my bank, and it said, "You have a new charge on your credit card from Big O Tires in, Smithfield, Arkansas." And all I did, counsel, and he's talking to me like all I did was I responded, "No." Okay? That's all that had to happen. Mr. Cardoza, all that had to happen was that your client, Scott Huffman, just had to say no, and then it would have been taken care of. And I don't understand why you're making a federal case out of it. Silence, 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 silence. Not sure what to say. Feel like this is kind of obvious. If you read the complaint, the lawsuit, you'd kind of know. And dude's like being really intimidating, although I'm not intimidated, but I'm supposed to pretend like I am. So I say, "Well, Your Honor, he did." "Well, did what? He spent the money. He spent the money in Canada." I'm like, no, sir. No, Your Honor. He texted no." "Well, what?" Yeah. The Chase. They said, "Did you spend the money in Canada?" He texted back no. Well, head explodes, mediation over, and now I got a question for you. Wait for it. Now discovery begins. Discovery. This is where we get all this stuff, right? So
this is where we collect evidence.
Yeah, but we're getting it from Chase, right? So they tell Chase, You got to send me all the phone records associated with this account. No, we don't. Yes, you do. We're going to make a motion. We're not going to abide by it. We're not going to give you this. We're going to cheat and only give you like a summary. Well, we don't have the recordings. Like, oh, well, you destroyed them. Well, no, we didn't. Oh, then give me the recordings. Okay, fine. We do have them. So here they come, right? Here come the recordings, right? From Chase Bank. Chase in Huffman versus Chase. You can Google it. Do you remember when Nick was talking about how he had that bank hacking client victim and the recordings came back and his client was a woman, but the recordings, it sounded like a dude?
Mm-hmm.
Same exact thing. Like, Scott is as sort of like wet bread as possible. If you've ever gotten like one of these, Nigerian prince emails or phone calls, that's what's happening. Only there's 13 of them. 12 of them are interesting because this person, this man, this deeply accented man, attempts to get Scott Huffman's mother's maiden name correct. Okay, Mr. Huffman, and what's your mother's maiden name? Julie. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's not it. I'm not able to help you today. Click. Dials back again, Maria. Nope. Finally, and you know what the winner is, right? Like everybody's mother's maiden name? Elizabeth. yes, that's it. And can I send a code to your cell number? Don't have cell phone, left without it to Canada. Oh, okay. Well, where are you? Best Western, Ottawa. Oh, well, let me just FedEx you a card right now. It sounds great. Thanks. So they FedEx him a card. He spends his $66.23. Now, my question for you is, Chase knew this the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Why, when Scott said it wasn't me, didn't they just listen to the phone recordings and be like, oh, yeah, you're right? Why didn't it happen for him like it happened for our judge when the judge said, no, I didn't open the Big O Tires account? Why did Chase keep trying to tell Scott Huffman that he owes $6,600? Don't you tell me. You worked for these guys.
Oh, well, because nobody's there to tell you.
What do you mean?
I mean, these are different people picking up the phone. They all work in some call center in Malaysia, or if you're lucky, they work in a call center in Youngstown, Ohio, right? And they pick up, and then they don't care. They're getting paid, pennies. They just want to go home. And then when Scott says this is not him, there's not really somebody. It's a machine. It's an algorithm that does everything. Nobody's actually like sitting there. Oh, let me compare this record. Let me do this. That only happens in litigation. This is why you got to make a federal case out of it. Sometimes when it works, great. Like the judge keeps type no, and then the whole situation gets resolved. But when it doesn't get resolved, it is a nightmare to fix. And they're just never going to fix it if you just call them and ask them to do it. Because once a decision is made, the decision is made. And the decision is made by an algorithm.
What do you mean? Like an algorithm? Like there's no Chase Bank in Malaysia, so I don't understand why we're talking about Malaysia. And B, what do you mean? Like a computer makes a decision?
Yeah, a computer is everything. I mean, these banks dedicate so much resources to creating automations and creating systems to handle everything. They don't actually have a human being to sit there and analyze these types of things. And this is only going to get worse and worse with AI, right? And it's an algorithm talking to another algorithm. It's one machine talking to another machine. And if you're lucky, somebody picks up the phone, they just don't really care that much either. And the level of actual analytical thought process required to put two and two together when the system doesn't work well really doesn't happen until you get into litigation. Nobody looks at this stuff. Just nobody does.
Yeah, it's insane.
Well, like we were saying, right? Like 1.5 billion transactions a day. Nobody's doing this.
Well, shall I reveal how it turned out, or do you think viewers have Googled it by now? You want to take a guess?
I'm guessing Scott Huffman got his money back and a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not a little bit, but definitely more.
He got he got the Federal Rule 68 offer of judgment.
Okay.
Shortly thereafter for $100,000.
Okay.
Plus attorney's fees and costs, which I can't remember. I think it's probably Googleable, but my guess is it was another $80,000 or $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't get like why it blows the mind that and it must be a profitable decision to just accept the risk that you're going to screw over however many tens of thousands of Scott Huffmans are out there for, is that worth $200,000? Like, are they making that much money, like in savings on using algorithms and Malaysian people who have no idea even what's going on? I mean, it has to be.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Without a question. I mean, I'm no Jamie Dimon, but I can promise you JP Morgan makes more. So you guys accepted the offer of judgment.
Why not?
Okay.
I mean,
so just
$100,000 and plus, a couple $100,000, like, okay.
Pre-discovery. So Scott Huffman found Mike Cardoza and turned a $6,000 loss into a $200,000 judgment before, in a few months.
Well, I think we did depositions.
Oh, you did deposition?
Yeah, he had to sit for a deposition, and so did his wife. To talk all about how, like, it stressed him out, and like he had no control, and he wasn't going to pay the $6,600. And why did they put him through all that hell? I just don't get why they wouldn't, come
it's
out
not.
with it
It's
right
not
away.
about the number. It's not about the $6,600, right? The guy lives in Orinda. I'm sure he has $6,600.
Yeah.
But the issue is the stress. Like, as a professional, as somebody who spends your entire life, to have an invasion into your personality, invasion into seclusion, right? Invasion into your entire world, to have your identity stolen, to breach this idea, this very concept of security you have, right? That because, like, if they can do this with $6,600 on your Amazon credit card, what's there to stop them from doing this with your Fidelity account? What's there to stop them from doing this into your 401k? What's this to stop them in, doing this with all of your other stuff, right? And then you have to deal with this world. And I'm guessing Scott is not a consumer protection lawyer. Like, I don't know what he does, but anybody, I mean, you cannot pay me to call Chase. You can, like, well, I guess you could technically. I do that. You can pay me to call their counsel, but I'm not going to call customer service, right? It's so frustrating. It's so beyond frustrating to deal with this kind of stuff. And,
we sued the credit bureaus too.
Did you?
Yeah, because he wouldn't pay the $6,600. So Chase reported him late and delinquent, and his credit score just like took a major crap.
Oh.
And I had this other client who I can't name, but she had this thing happen to her where she had identity theft, and like there was all of a sudden a bunch of charges. And she started making the minimum payments on them so her credit wouldn't, crash. And then when we came to litigate the identity theft, the defendant was like, well, obviously it was her because she paid it. And I'm like, but she couldn't afford to have her credit be totally tubed because you didn't investigate her identity. She sent you a police report. She sent you an ID theft affidavit. She sent you a letter, drafted by a lawyer, and you still told her no because it was you. And oh my God, it's crazy, dude. It's computers. I'm convinced that it's computers talking to computers.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And if it's not, it's some, I'm just using an example, some Malaysian person that gets, 12 cents an hour, and, they can look at it. If you're lucky, they might spend 10 seconds.
Yeah, in fact, I think that's what it is. Another thing that's frustrating in these cases is you're trying to find out from the company, like, okay, well, who was in charge of investigating this dispute? Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, it was this guy at, Teleperformance or whatever. And you're like, okay, well, we need to talk to them. And they're like, can't help you. They're an independent contractor in, Mumbai, and you're going to have to go to the Hague Convention in order to subpoena them. So we're like, what are you talking about? Like, don't they work for you? Like, they're like, oh, but they're overseas, so you can't get them into court. Like, you can't find out. Like, do they have a computer? Oh yeah. Do they have a phone? Well, no. Do they speak English? Like, well, yeah. Are they U.S. citizens? No. What training packet are they using? Well, we think it's this one, but we're really not sure. Like, do you audit them? Well, they're doing great. Dude, it's like fake. Anyway, that's the Scott Huffman story. Sadly, it has repeated itself hundreds of times every year, and my staff is working on 200 of them right now. So all you Scott and Sarah Huffmans out there, you're not crazy. Oh, another thing that pisses me off is the bank tries to make you think you're crazy. Oh my God. In a arbitration we just had, which is public, Citibank was telling our client, no, you took the $20,000 out of your own checking account. Yeah, because it was your phone. And she keeps writing these letters, and they keep sending her letters back. Well, we've escalated it to the executive management team, and we've done a deep dive into the computers and found out, no, it was you. You're lying. You're lying for 2 years until she found us. And so we do this thing. We file the lawsuit. We go into the whole deal. We get the evidence. Well, what does the evidence show? We get the spreadsheets. We look through it. Oh, that's a different IP address. That's a different kind of phone. He doesn't have a Galaxy. Like, how? Why? Why would you? And that was like, I'm not going to number numbers because your mileage may differ. The important thing is fixing your credit and getting, back to good on that. But my God, why would a bank risk that kind of money and just keep lying to a consumer and never look into whether or not it was true? I don't know, I'm preaching to the choir, but it boggles my mind that this kind of behavior makes money, and that we are as a group of attorneys who practice consumer financial protection law, that we are overwhelmed by clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you think it can't happen to you, I'm walking downtown with my dad, right? And I'm telling him about this case, and it's against a bank that he banks at. And it's an elderly woman, and somebody has sucked out money from her bank account. And now, she's got the oxygen tank. We're doing the deposition. The opposing attorney is being a real bitch. You didn't, and you got rid of the computer. She's like, it was 4 years ago. I turned it into my guy. I got a new computer. You destroyed the evidence. This lady, dude, I don't know how you did this job. This lady is yelling at my lady who's got the oxygen going, and she's the greatest generation. She's never lied to anybody in her life. She's responsible for the freedom of America. And this 40-year-old woman is yelling at her. She's she's a child. Dude, it was blowing my mind. So anyway, I'm telling my dad about this case as we're walking downtown. We get a cup of coffee. He goes, oh yeah, I bank there too. And I'm like, well, let me tell you on the down low about this case. And my dad, God bless his heart, this is what he says. Oh, it's a good thing that never happened to me, because all the tellers in there know me. Oh my God. I'm like, no, Dad, you don't get it. It's millions and millions of, this is computers talking to computers. Those people are just there for you to think that they're people. They're not actually doing anything. In today's day and age, if you wear a suit, you're either going to court or you are a bank teller. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Or you run security at a restaurant.
Yeah, but usually not with the jacket. Well, no, with the jacket. But that's it. Dude, it's totally fugazi. I mean, I just, oh man. Anyway, sorry, you got me off on a tangent.
No, this stuff we're very passionate about it, and your passion really shines, and it's really good to hear this kind of stuff.
I guess the message I want to leave people with is, you're not crazy. And here's a telling thing. Here's what happened. Remember this Citibank thing I was talking to you about where you took out the $20,000? Mm-hmm. So we're doing this arbitration, and it's kind of like court, except it's with an arbitrator, and the results are real, and they really hurt if, there's a lot of money that, goes the other way for them. And have a co-counsel, and I'm doing the examination of our client. Mm-hmm. So she's on the stand, swears under oath, and court's it's not like TV. It's easy. You know what I'm going to ask you. You know what you're going to say. You know what they're going to ask you. You know what you're going to say. There's nothing to be scared of. So she's up there, and I decided to kick it off by playing the recording of her very first call. She was on vacation in Mexico with her mom, her travel buddy, and she noticed on her phone that this $20,000 was missing, and she freaked the fuck out and called this bank. It's called Citibank. And the phone call goes like, hey, you can hear it in her voice, right? She's freaking out. And the Citibank lady's like, don't worry about it. It's like, it's good. It's all good. I see it here. I see it's not from your phone. We're going to take care of it. It's no problem. And I played the thing, and I'm watching our client, and all of a sudden, she's sitting like this, and all of a sudden, Pink, she goes like this. She goes like catatonic. And I'm like, ooh, this isn't good. Because I have I got a whole legal pad full of questions. Like, we got to get some facts out here because I got to prove my case. So I ask her, I says, what happened just now? She looked at me, she's like dazed. I'm like, okay.
Who went catatonic? The client or
the client goes catatonic while I'm playing this recording, right? And I'm like, basically, I'm thinking to myself, what is wrong with you? And how are we going to get out of this? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Oh my God, my case is burning down. I said, when I played this recording, you started looking at a spot like 15 feet out on the floor, and your mouth was open. That's just a fact. And you were staring blankly like you were somewhere else. Like, where did you go? And she looks up and she goes, and just tears start coming out. And she goes, it's real. And I'm like, okay, that's not a good answer. Like, I'm not loving that, but maybe I'll just let her go on. It's real. I for all these years that I've been writing these letters, and they've been telling me that it was me, I've gone over and over again in my mind, like, did I leave my phone somewhere? Was it one of my relatives? Like, was my house cleaner? Like, could it be my coworker? Like, how could it possibly be me? And she's like, it's real. It really did happen. It really wasn't me. She had been getting lied to and gaslit by Citibank for so long that she had started to doubt herself. And a lot of times when I have clients call me, they're on the border of giving up because they feel like they feel like I'm the next person to tell them that they're crazy. Because the bank's already told them that they're crazy like 100 times.
Exactly.
And they're about to lose hope.
Yeah. It's sad.
Now that's fucked up.
It's sad. And gaslighting is the perfect term. It's perfect term.
Well, we've done the analysis.
So what happened?
I mean, a lot of money, but that's not going to oh, of course, they're fighting it like, well, no, we didn't like the way that turned out. So, yeah, I bet you didn't. But the money doesn't make up for, the 3 years of thinking about it.
No, it doesn't.
Hair in the drain. Scott Huffman's wife. I'm like, well, what's she got to say? Like, okay, I work in this business. All right, how big of a deal is $6,600? Like, well, it turns out it's not so much the money, it's the loss of control. And it's now we're a credit-driven economy. So, I'm a 700 guy. You talk to people and they're like, well, I've been in the 700. I pay my bills on time. Like, I'm a good citizen. I'm a good person. Now, all of a sudden, it's like being wrongfully convicted. Like, oh, now you're a 500. Now we're not, you want a new car? Sorry. You need to find, sorry. You enter this whole new world of subprime finance where nothing is possible, and you actually start kind of going backwards because you can't afford the 130% loan that Nick was talking about. And so Scott Huffman's wife, it was amazing. The defense is examining her like, well, how, what really happened? He looks great and works in commercial real estate. Well, actually, when he gets stressed out, he gets really quiet. And he was really quiet for a long time. And I know he's not like a spring chicken and we have kids, but I had kept having to clean out the drain in the shower and I know it's his hair because I wear a shower cap. And he would wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, what's going on? He's like, oh, nothing. I just got some work to do. And he would just, ever since this whole case has gotten started and he found you and your law firm, he's been sleeping.
That's got to be good to hear.
Now that's a weird self-testimonial, but it's actually fact.
Yeah. I can feel it. Because these people, they've been gaslit for so long and they don't have anybody to help them. And when they have somebody capable like you to help them, it's got to be such a relief. Or not got, it is such a relief.
Yeah.
It absolutely is such a relief. And it's about the invasion, right? It's not about the $6,600.
No.
It's about the invasion. Like imagine you have you live in your home, right? You're in your house with your family, and a crackhead breaks in and steals your TV. You can go to Target and buy a 75-inch TV for $600. A TV is not the problem. You can go get a new TV. It's the fact that you now live in a house where you no longer have control.
That could happen again.
Yeah, it could absolutely happen again. And maybe next time they won't take the TV. Maybe next time they'll kill your children.
But you don't know.
Yeah, and that fear.
Yeah, what's the one thing, and I love to ask this question, what's the one thing humans are most afraid of? Fire! Like, no. Lions. Like,
Uncertainty.
No. Boom.
Uncertainty.
It's not knowing. And I'm going to tell a story on myself that's awful, and I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay, go ahead.
When I owned a debt buying collection business, that makes it sound kind of like, oh, I was one of these Wall Street guys. No, we ran the whole business. Like I have made collection calls before. Mm-hmm. Hi, blah, 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 name of my company is a debt collector and any information will be used for, I've done it. I've worked as a debt collector. And I remember listening to when we were in that industry, and I remember listening to this shareholders call for Midland Credit Management. And they are one of the 3 largest buyers of distressed consumer credit card debt in America. And they're owned by Encore Capital Group. And at the time, the CEO of Encore Capital was Brandon Black. And Brandon Black gets on the shareholder call and he says, the reason we're so successful is we as a company, we buy billions of dollars of distressed consumer debt, and then we, send letters and make phone calls and sue people to get the money. The reason we're so successful is we're not solving a financial problem, we're solving a behavioral problem. So what I've done for all you shareholders of Midland Credit Management and Encore Capital Group is I have hired the top shelf PhDs in behavioral psychology. And what we have found is this and that and the other thing. And so one of the takeaways of that is that when collectors tell consumers that some vague thing will happen, that gets payment. Paying. So 2 things. One is people pay people they like. And 2 is because you're a reptile, right? Back here, you are afraid of fire and lions, and that's because your ancestors who were afraid of fire and lions lived and they had sex, and you got here. I don't know if this is a G-rated show.
I'm sure my ancestors had sex.
Yeah.
It'd be impossible for me to be here.
I know. There's the creationist thing, which we kind of run into, but we don't need to go there. So I'm calling you, and I'm going to collect. Hi, Mr. Zhao. Yeah, hey, Mike Cardoza calling from Acme Collection. Hey, I'm just calling on a recorded line, and we're a debt collector, and any information I get can be used to collect the debt. But I just wanted to ask you about the ACE credit card balance that you had. It's at $343, and I'm in a position today because it's Tuesday. We can discount that for you to 80% if you pay at once. So that would only be $287.50. How would you like to handle that? And you're like, I don't want to handle that. That's your problem. It's not my problem. But what I tell you is when you say that, I say, and I'd really like to get it done today because I don't have this portfolio on my desk after today. After today, I'm supposed to give all these to secondary control. And so if we could kind of do something today, that'd be awesome. So now I've sort of touched you over the phone because we're having a rapport and I'm being kind and respectful. I want to help. I'm giving you a discount. And you're never going to talk to me again because your account's going to go to secondary control. There is no secondary control. It's fucking bullshit. It doesn't exist. It's a nothing. But it's now whatever you make it up to be in your head. And you're thinking, and what are we really good at? because of our ancestors, we are good at catastrophizing. So you know these people, and the lawyers are a lot of them, because that's what you get paid for as a lawyer, right? Like, just avoid the trees. Like, that's not how race car driving works, right? It's not like, okay, you got to avoid that tree, and then you got to avoid this tree. Like, no, the winning race drivers, they follow the best line in the car, in the track. But your mind is going to fill in what secondary control is. And now you're going to get scared of the unknown. And I haven't said anything more about secondary control. And if you ask me, I'll tell you I don't know. It's out of my hands after that, which is a classic, police interrogation technique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I forget how we got on this topic of uncertainty being the biggest fear. That's it. It's because if it happened over $60 or $6,600 and your credit score got tanked and you're now a 550, and no one believes me, like my relatives are giving me stupid advice. The judge is telling me I should have texted no, which I fucking did, and Citibank's telling me that it was my phone and I'm crazy. Like, am I crazy? Like, when's it going to happen next? And like, when I get these phone calls, I'm often the first person to tell these people that they are not crazy.
Yeah, it's not your fault.
And dude, it happens all the time. And they're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, just because, we all drive every single day, despite the fact that car accidents are like the number 3 biggest killer in America, right? But we all live under the assumption that we're probably going to be safe when we drive. But it's still, just because it doesn't happen to 100% of the people doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It still happens a lot. And, and I guess just to bring this 360, this is why I'm glad we do what we do. Because, the system does work to a certain point, and it works well enough.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, these banks, they make enough money, and they do provide a valuable service.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But the system is not perfect. And that's why you need attorneys like us, you need people like us, you need businessmen like us to help protect the people that fall through the cracks, help protect the consumers that when they did text no, when they did call while they're on vacation, taking their valuable time to call and say, hey, I didn't do this, what's going on with my money? And they get reassured by these banks that they're going to be taken care of in compliance with the law that's been around for 50, 60, 70 years. Not 70, 60 years. Well, not like 50 some years, right? Yeah. A long time, half a decade or half a century, right? They're supposed to be taken care of, right? Because this is how our system works. And without a trust, because all this money is all zeros and ones, it's all binary, it's all arbitrary, it's none of this is real. So if the faith in the system collapses, everything collapses, right? And we all have to play our part. But I'm glad that we do this. I'm glad that we're able to help people, and I'm glad you're able to help people to do this. And I'm glad that you're able to help Scott Huffman. I'm glad you're able to help your clients, and and at the end of the day, I think that's a beautiful thing, right? I'm sorry to keep coming back to this, but I'm just so curious about it. When you were on the other side, defending these banks, defending these credit bureaus, who are not part of the government, by the way. 67% of us believe that credit bureaus are part of the government. No, they're private companies.
They're not. They're private for-profit companies that make money off your information, and you and I are not.
They're data brokers.
Yeah, but we didn't sign up for it.
No.
Like, that's a whole nother conversation. But when you were on the other side, like defending these banks and defending these credit bureaus, like, how'd you do it?
Reluctantly. It's, my parents hate this analogy. And I've told this story before. It all made sense to me after hearing about this story, and after it's a very concrete, specific thing that made sense to me was Dave Chappelle's story on why he left Comedy Central. I don't know if you remember this. Back in 2008, I think, Comedy Central offered Dave Chappelle like $23 million or a crazy amount of money to keep doing Chappelle's show, right? Wouldn't do it, moved to Africa, and just completely ran away from everything. And the whole world thought he was crazy. Came back 10 years later, reappeared, and kind of told this story on why he left. I mean, Chappelle is a brilliant storyteller, and he's a real like there's a lot of wisdom in what he says, and he explained it without really explaining it, and he used the example of a book, and like I said, I told you this story before. The book's called Pimp. It's a story of a 1920s pimp from Chicago, Midwest area, about literally pimping prostitutes. And that's, when I heard that whole story, that's what made sense to me. Because they paid defense attorneys very well, right? And even though I did it reluctantly, and like a lot of my former colleagues do, they still continue to do it every single day. That 40-year-old lady that yelled at your client, she didn't yell at her because she hates her. She yelled at her because she hates her own job.
Oh, whoa.
Right?
She's like transferring her pain.
She hates the fact that she has to go and do this. She hates the fact that she has to review this lady's credit report. She hates the fact that she has to go and look at all the phone recordings. And she hates doing all of this stuff because she's doing it just so that she can pay for her mortgage and pay for her kids' private school. And then she has to deal with partners above her. She has to deal with associates underneath her. And she has to deal with general counsel. There's so much stress coming to her. And you can't yell at the clients. You can't yell at the people that pay you. So who do you yell at? You can only yell at this lady who's giving you more work. You can yell at her lawyer, Mike Cardoza, who's bringing this case. And to her, she's like, what the hell? I don't give a shit about any of this. Like, you're probably lying, right? Like, none of this is true. So, like, what are you doing? Why are you?
It's true. It's like obviously true. Like the phone recordings from Scott Huffman's case.
But what can she do? She's also kind of powerless too, right? Because like I said, reluctantly, like when the cases we've had against each other, oftentimes I would just be like, let's just obviously something happened. Let's just do the right thing. I mean, I said it a couple of times that you can't keep saying because you get yelled at, right? And it's like,
you're talking about as a defense attorney talking to your client. Hey, let's just like make it go away.
Yeah, but they don't want that because they're paying you to make it go away without them paying, and they don't want to set bad examples. Like, I mean, they want to win, right? At the end of the day, they want to win. So they're looking at the plaintiffs as the bad guys. And oftentimes I'm like, well, something bad happened here, right? They filed the police report. The evidence is here. Let's do the right thing. But nobody really, what the right thing is gets very, very hazy when the perspective changes, right? And so when you do this, it's reluctant, and that's why I had to come back. I had to come back to the plaintiff side.
I'm trying to get enough money to send a signal. Like Bank of America makes $76.3 million. Wait for it. Every day in profit. That's all the gravy that runs out of the mouth after all the conferences and the golf club memberships and the employees. That's just like overflowing. $76.3 million every day, including Sundays when you can't even get a Chick-fil-A sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do I even shock that big of a bug? Like, how are we going to make change? That's my point about the money is like, I want enough money, and naively, when the Huffman case, I'm like, oh, well, $250,000 ought to make them, take a, no, the defendants are just, like you said, they're price insensitive because they make way more than that. This is I'm like an ant.
Well, it's like how do you build the pyramids, right? You move one boulder at a time, right? And once you do enough, you build enough momentum. Maybe more lawyers will come do this. More consumers understand it. The more podcasts we do, the more conversations we have, more people hear about it, and then eventually this kind of stuff happens, right? And I think it's important not to get lost in the in the futility of things. Right? Focus on the work, focus on the process. And remember, at the end of the day, you did help Scott Huffman.
Yeah.
You helped all these people, and you continue to help all these people. And that's really what makes it worth it. Right. And I bet that feels better than that cigarette when you were 12 years old.
that cigarette was 12 was horrible.
Yeah. Well, anyways,
Thank you.
this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you.
I really, really enjoyed this. I mean, I think the camera's running out. We got to turn the camera off, but we're going to keep talking. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, let's go to lunch. I'm hungry.
Thank you so much. And I hope everybody enjoyed this. I certainly did. And thank you so much, Mike.
Peng.
Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by for another episode of Abogado Toast.